Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reisch, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased, true crime channel on YouTube. First on the docket, Gillian Maxwell. Her 2006 deposition has been unsealed. Second, the court has dismissed a charge against Derek Chauvin. Third, what happened at Nicole Kessinger's name change hearing today? I'll tell you all about it. Fourth, journaling can be a good thing. Fifth, Purdue Pharma pleads guilty. And finally, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk. Thanks for watching. We have a busy docket, but first, as always, if you haven't done so already, we'd ask that you please hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we go live or put up new content, and always leave us a comment and like the video for today. Now, first on the docket, Gillian Maxwell. That's right, the former girlfriend slash friend of that guy named Jeff, who's no longer with us. Her 2016 deposition from a civil case has been released. Now, this was a civil case regarding various defamation charges and things like that were brought in regards to a sex trafficking allegations that were made. Well, as we've mentioned before, a Denver firm actually represents Miss Gillian Maxwell, and that's the Haddon Morgan Foreman law firm. They are a very good law firm, a very smart group of attorneys down there, and very, very knowledgeable. You know, they've been involved in some cases. Let's see, which ones can I think of off the top of my head? Oh, yeah, JonBenet Ramsey, the Kobe Bryant case. Yeah, those are a couple of cases that just popped to mind. Very smart attorneys, very, very good. Well, needless to say, Gillian Maxwell, through her attorneys, were trying to have the appellate courts stop the release of this deposition transcript. The appellate courts issued an order yesterday saying that it would be released, and it, in fact, has been released. I have not read all of the 465 pages just yet. I guess I'll do that in my spare time. However, from what I have read, it looks like there's a whole lot of nothing being answered in this particular deposition. A whole lot of no's, don't recalls, a whole lot of objections to every question, which is good. That's how you preserve the objection later at trial. And also a whole lot of non-answers throughout this case. Now, so it's probably not going to be the titillating read that most people were expecting in this particular case. It doesn't appear to name a whole lot of names at all, if any, from what I've read. And on top of that, the denials. Now, remember, Gillian Maxwell is charged with several counts of perjury, allegedly relating to her denials of questions in this particular deposition. I don't see how this greatly helps the prosecution, and it certainly is not what I think most people thought that it would be. But what this does show is that you can really protect your client when you go in for a deposition. Unlike when they actually get on a witness stand and are forced to answer questions in front of a judge, a lot of these things are preserved until later. It's an interesting read. Mr. Pagliuca, Jeffrey Pagliuca, who is the attorney for her, in my opinion, does a very, very good job defending his client. And on one more note, as it relates to Gillian Maxwell, today is day 112 when she hasn't been suicided. So she's got that going for her, although she remains in custody. Next on the docket, Derek Chauvin. Remember that guy? Seemed to cause a lot of trouble around the United States. Well, guess what? A judge has dropped the third-degree murder charge against him in the George Floyd matter. That's right. A judge has dropped the third-degree murder charge against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in regards to the death of George Floyd. Now, Chauvin still faces charges of a second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter, and obviously this sparked a whole lot of protests and a lot of discussions over race and policing this summer. Now, Chauvin, who was released a couple of weeks ago on a $1 million bond, was seen, obviously, in the video that started the whole thing, putting his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck. Now, the dismissal of the charge has been stayed, which means it doesn't go into effect for at least 5 days. And what that does is it gives the prosecutor an opportunity to decide if they want to appeal to a higher court. Now, the judge agreed with Chauvin's defense team that the third-degree murder, that it did not apply in this particular case. The judge said prosecutors were only able to prove 2 of the 3 elements required for the charge. What have we talked about a lot here in Crime Talk? They have to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to present some evidence related to the charge to make it get beyond challenges in the early pretrial proceedings. Those elements that they were only able to show was that Floyd died and that Chauvin caused his death. But the final element of probable cause for third-degree murder involves proving that the defendant was putting people other than the victim at risk. So it was an unusual charge, and that's why the court agreed with it. The defense gets a small victory, but it really doesn't matter because court reasoned that Chauvin's actions were directed only at Floyd, and they did not and could not have resulted in harm to anyone else other than Floyd, so therefore probable cause didn't exist as to the third-degree murder charge. Normally, that charge would be used in a better situation where, for example, someone were to randomly shoot into a moving train and somebody was killed. It's kind of an extreme indifference. And here, the actions were directly focused on George Floyd, not some third party. We'll see how things go. Maybe that's the start of good news for Mr. Chauvin, or maybe an insignificant victory for sure. We'll have to wait and see. Like I've said before, ultimately, this case is going to be decided by a jury unless Mr. Chauvin and his fellow officers or former officers decide to take a guilty plea. Next on the docket, quick recess. Please go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. When you do, you'll be able to search literally millions of public records, have a report generated while you wait, and you're going to be able to find out information on the individual that you searched, which can be done completely anonymously, and you're going to get telephone numbers associated with that person, email addresses, social media. You'll get a criminal background check history. You're going to get property records, marital records, divorce, civil judgments. You're going to get that information that you are going to want to know about somebody, particularly if you're going to get involved with them. So go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for your background subscription service today. You'll be absolutely satisfied that you did. Now, next on the docket, what happened at Nicole Kessinger's name change hearing? As you may recall, last week we reported that Nicole Kessinger had a hearing set to change her name. It was set for today, October 22nd, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. So where was Scott Reisch at that time? That's right, sitting in courtroom 3H of the Jefferson County Courthouse to see what was transpiring. Now, I would note that it was a little odd that when we tried to check the record online, we were unable to do so. But I proceeded there anyway, thinking perhaps it had been suppressed, but they were still going to have a hearing. So there were a few preliminary matters taking place, and I waited patiently. Ultimately, the matter was done, and I approached the court clerk, and the judge was there, whom I know from practicing many years in that particular jurisdiction. She used to be a former public defender. I said, Your Honor, I'm here for a name change hearing. And she said, I thought that was why you would probably be here. And I said, it appears as though the date's been changed. And the judge just stared at me through her mask because I couldn't see her facial expression. And I said, so there's not going to be a hearing. And let me guess, it sounds like the case has been suppressed. And she just kind of looked at me like, I can't say anything, but yes, you got it right. So what does that mean? The case has been suppressed. Well, let's face it. Normally, ladies and gentlemen, every public record is that, a public record, and should be available for viewing. If I wanted to go down and get a copy of the case file in any criminal case, I should be allowed to get it. That's what happens in a free society. You know, when I first started practicing law, if you wanted to go look at another court case, you didn't go look it up online. You went to the courthouse, pulled the file, and went down to the basement of the courthouse and got the file. Now it's all digital. So now when they suppress a court proceeding, no one can get access to it unless you're the court or the attorney of record on the matter, which is a little odd since how are you supposed to know where and to file something? Let's say if you object to somebody's name being changed, you can't. Now, the Colorado courts took a little bit of a black eye a couple years ago because the Denver Post, the newspaper here in town, did a story regarding why can't we get access to certain cases that are public record. Think about it. We get access to Letitia Stauch's case filings, and she's charged with murder of a child. But yet, somehow, there's some compelling state interest for a name change of an individual who's never been charged with a crime, but yet is a public figure based upon her involvement with a man who did, in fact, commit multiple crimes, that somehow we, the citizens, are not entitled to access to those records. I've got a real problem with that. My guess is, my thinking is, that there were two big stories that hit about Miss Nicole Kessinger the other week. One from the Daily Mail and two from Crime Talk, stating that there was, in fact, a story. My thinking is that the attorney for Miss Kessinger filed a motion to have her case suppressed so that nobody could, in fact, know what was taking place. I believe that because when the court stated to me today, I thought that was the reason why you were here. I wonder if my name came up in a pleading to seal the case. We're not doing anything unethical. We're not doing anything unlawful. We're simply attending a public hearing. We're not going to tell people where she resides. We're not going to take pictures of her in the hallway. We do have some conscience as a criminal defense attorney, I assure you of that. And I've never met anyone worth going to jail over, nor have I ever met a client worth losing my law license over. And I certainly wouldn't do it over Nicole Kessinger. That's for sure. This is public information. You have to publish that Nicole Kessinger wants to change her name in newspapers, but yet we can't see what date the hearing is going to be done. Real problem with that. In January of this year, the Colorado Supreme Court set up a commission or the rules committee to change the rules. So there's standard uniformity regarding this because now it can be just done by a judge at a moment's notice. Unfortunately, the only thing that I can report to you is we don't know when her hearing will be or if it's already taken place. And we can't tell you what is the new name that Miss Kessinger would like to change her name to. I mean, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. If I wanted to go down and change my name, anybody could show up, anybody could pull the file, find out held my name out to be and who I want to be held out there from that particular date. I'm not exactly sure why Nicole Kessinger is getting some special treatment. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Next on the docket, you know how everyone says you should journal? Well, apparently it pays off for at least a young girl who has been a victim of molestation. A 46-year-old Georgia man faces allegations of molestation based upon a 10-year-old girl's journal. She apparently kept a diary of what took place. Now, this young girl, my hat is off to her. Her mother ultimately found this journal, turned it over to the police, and David Lee Kinnison is now in custody. Obviously, we will give him the presumption of innocence until and if he is convicted in a court of law. Now, I can tell you, having done many of these cases over the years, one of the cross-examinations is always, what day did this take place? And nobody can ever say what day that it took place. And they always say, well, it's not like they were keeping a journal. Well, this young girl had the journal. Good for her. All right. I used to tell my students when I taught down at Metro State, now it's university, it used to be a college when I taught there. I said, listen, as a defense attorney, your job is to bring out the facts. And sometimes the facts are painful. Sometimes the facts hurt. If you're cross-examining, for example, a victim or you're cross-examining a police officer, they're going to be better for it in the future, particularly police officers. And in this particular case, this girl may never have to take the witness stand because she took this journal down. Assuming these allegations are true, and like I said, we'll give Mr. Kinnison the presumption of innocence, but if they are in fact true, this little girl, 10 years old, good for her. I'm sorry you had to go through any of that if it's true, but at least you had enough sense about it to write it down. Good job. Next on the docket, Purdue Pharma. That's right, Purdue Pharma, the maker of highly addictive Oxycontin, the opioid drug. You know, synthetic heroin. The people that are accused of creating the opioid pandemic, so to speak. Well, guess what? They've pled guilty to felony criminal charges, and they were able to settle the case with the United States government for a paltry $8.3 billion. The settlement, which resolved criminal charges and civil liability, was obviously hailed by the Department of Justice. Last year, Purdue filed for bankruptcy protection, and it's unknown whether the government will ever prosecute members of the Sackler family because it's a closely held corporation, but it is believed to be that the Sacklers paid some $225 million as part of the civil settlement, which is a significant chunk of change. Now, I get it. The Oxycontin problem certainly came about by Purdue Pharma having a product, and they wanted to sell more of it. And they were basically giving kickbacks to regulators, doctors, and patients, saying that Oxycontin posed no risk whatsoever. So take as much as you want. How things have changed. Now, if somebody goes to the hospital and you get more than a 3-day supply of Oxycontin, you have to be able to tell the doctor that you must be in real severe pain. More than likely, you're probably being addicted to these pain pills. And I'm certainly not for prosecuting the people that were taking the pills because they were being prescribed. I think the real problem were the doctors prescribing them. And you rarely, if ever, hear any cases about the doctors being charged who are actually over prescribing these particular patients. Occasionally you hear about a case, normally when somebody dies. Had a case years ago where a small little pharmacy in a small little town was distributing more Oxycontin pills than, say, for example, a large Walmart in an urban area. One could possibly think that maybe the DEA could have picked up on that a little sooner than the 5 years that the data was there. Apparently no one was looking. Probably one of the regulators that was paid off by Purdue. Obviously, there is good to a lot of these prescriptions, but like anything, it can be abused. It's unfortunate, though, so many people have become addicted and ultimately died and or had their lives completely ruined. So Purdue Pharma, let's get a little smarter about this when you come out of bankruptcy. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal contestant of the day. Please meet Stephanie Dowdy, 33. Miss Dowdy was pulled over for a routine traffic stop down in Louisiana. While officers were approaching Miss Dowdy's Honda Civic, the officer on the passenger side was struck in the leg by a plastic bag thrown out the passenger window. Now, Ms. Dowdy, the only passenger in the car, initially claimed she didn't throw the package out the window, the package that ultimately hit the officer. Needless to say that Miss Dowdy recanted and ultimately admitted that the package being thrown out the window was a baggie full of methamphetamine. Miss Dowdy was charged with felony narcotics possession as well as obstruction of justice for attempting to ditch the meth. She was also cited without a driver's license. So Miss Dowdy, let me give you a little bit of legal advice. First, if you're going to deny, you should probably maintain that. But the best advice is don't say a word, because don't lie to the police. It never goes well from there, okay? Keep your mouth shut. Then you don't have to worry about trying to explain your lie. But also, if you're going to be carrying drugs, and not that we're condoning or encouraging anyone to do that, but you probably want to be properly licensed and insured. Don't speed. Make sure all your taillights are functioning properly and that your tail light on your license plate is also well lit. So there's no reason to pull you over. But when you do get pulled over, you probably want to throw the meth out long before the police officer is on the ground and you're stopped right next to the police officer. I've seen cases, had cases where large quantities of, let's say, controlled narcotics were being thrown out the window in powder form. And so ultimately, when the police got there, guess what? There wasn't any product in which to charge anybody for that. Now, I'm not condoning it, nor am I encouraging anyone to go do that. Just letting you have a little life experience. Hopefully, Miss Dowdy, you get off of the methamphetamines, and let's hope you weren't distributing methamphetamines, because I'll be honest with you, it's absolute poison. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching today on Crime Talk. Wish we had more news for you on Nicole Kessinger. We'll continue to follow up, and we'll bring it to you when it happens. Thanks for watching Crime Talk. Have a great day.